Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something we all face, but, we rarely actually want to talk about: human risk. We're going to unpack the architecture of a company built entirely around protecting us from life's absolute most devastating uncertainties. Right now, we think of insurance as a totally normal part of modern life. We've got life insurance, retirement planning, financial protection. It's all neatly integrated into our monthly budgets. But here's a crazy historical fact for you. Back in its early days, life insurance was often viewed with massive suspicion by the general public. People literally called it gambling on death. No way was it the standard safety net it is today. So, to really grasp the fascinating history of how we manage risk now, we've got to peel back the layers and look at the foundation of one of America's oldest major mutual life insurers.
What would happen to your family if your income suddenly disappeared? Just pause and think about that. It's a jarring, deeply personal thought, right? It kind of hits you right in the gut. While modern families generally have access to safety nets and sophisticated financial products to cushion the blow of a tragedy, I want you to hold on to that raw feeling of uncertainty for just a second. Because to truly understand the source material we're analyzing today, we really need to bridge the gap between our comfortable modern lives and an incredibly harsh 19th century reality. A time when the answer to this exact question meant absolute, utter devastation.
Section 1. 1850s America. Unpredictable risks. Okay, let's dive into this.
We're starting our journey way back in 1850s America. The country was changing and expanding at an absolutely breakneck pace. The population was booming, railroads were aggressively pushing westward, and cities were exploding in size by the day. Businesses were getting way more sophisticated too. But alongside all this rapid progress, life was incredibly uncertain. There was absolutely zero government social safety net. Medical care was severely limited, and life expectancy, it was staggering by today's standards, hovering right around 40 years old. In this wild, rapidly expanding environment, the financial risks were just enormous. Families out on the frontier and even in those growing cities faced rampant disease, severe accidents, and sweeping economic crises. But the ultimate threat, the one that kept people up at night, was the sudden death of a breadwinner. If a family lost their primary income back then, there was no backup plan. None. It meant immediate, absolute financial disaster for the people left behind.
And that brings us to this incredibly pivotal year, 1857. Right in the middle of all this frontier danger and massive economic chaos, a group of people up in Wisconsin got together to build an institution of stability. They created a company specifically designed to tackle these exact problems, founding the Mutual Life Insurance Company of the state of Wisconsin. Now, over a century and a half later, you probably know it by the name it eventually adopted: Northwestern Mutual.
Section 2. The Mutual Insurance Solution, Sharing the Risk. Life insurance offered a truly brilliant solution to the crushing realities of the 1850s. The revolutionary idea here was that instead of leaving the entire, devastating weight of risk squarely on one single family, a large group of policyholders could actually contribute to a common pool. This is the absolute foundation of mutual insurance. It's a financial model where the organization is structured around and essentially owned by its participating policyholders. So when people signed up with this young Wisconsin company, they weren't just buying a product off a shelf like you would at the store. No, they were joining a financial organization specifically designed to protect them and their families. They were literally banding together to shield each other from the unknown.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the fundamental difference between two major financial models. On one hand, a traditional publicly traded corporation is built primarily around generating returns for outside shareholders. But the mutual company operates totally differently. It's built around the interests of its participating policyholders. This model became incredibly attractive for life insurance because the incentives are just perfectly aligned. The people being protected are the exact same people who own it. It's a real game changer when you think about it.
Section 3. America in Crisis. The Ultimate Tests of Survival.
So in its early years, this organization had a lot of work to do. They had to establish credibility, attract policyholders, and actually manage all that risk. To build a larger presence, the young insurer packed up and moved its headquarters to Milwaukee, which is fast becoming this major, important commercial center. But almost immediately, they were thrust into a rapid-fire timeline of absolute crises. Just a few short years after their founding, the Civil War erupted in 1861, heavily dividing the country and causing immense loss. And it didn't stop there. Later came the 1918 influenza pandemic, the turbulence of the Roaring Twenties, the 1929 Great Depression, and eventually World War II. Think about that for a second. Each of these eras brought massively unstable financial markets, heavily disrupted businesses, and the monumental challenge of managing just staggering numbers of claims. For any financial institution, and especially an insurance company, where customers need the most reassurance exactly when uncertainty is at its highest, these were the ultimate stress tests.
So how on earth did they survive all that and actually continue to grow? Well, as America industrialized, the company realized they had to industrialize their own approach to managing these long-term obligations. First off, they started utilizing heavy statistics and actuarial mathematics, creating these highly detailed mortality tables to truly deeply understand risk. Second, they developed highly advanced investment strategies. And third, this is absolutely crucial, they maintained fierce financial discipline. This discipline is essential, because life insurance has a very unique characteristic. The company might collect a premium from you today, but its financial obligation to your family could literally last for decades.
And that financial discipline, it paid off immensely during the Great Depression. The economic conditions were totally unprecedented. Banks were failing by the thousands. Businesses completely collapsed overnight. Millions of Americans lost their jobs, their homes, and their entire life savings. Traditional financial institutions were just falling apart at the seams all over the country, but the mutual model survived because they were strictly focused on managing those long-term promises rather than chasing short-term shareholder profits. Northwestern Mutual was able to continue operating steadily through the darkest economic decades in American history.
Section 4, Beyond Basic Life Insurance, the Modern Pivot.
As the country eventually recovered and continued to grow throughout the 20th century, the needs of American families naturally expanded. People were no longer strictly focused on, just basic survival against frontier diseases and accidents. They were looking to build and actually secure a prosperous future. To meet these modern, complex needs, Northwestern Mutual evolved over time into a much broader financial services model. Traditional life insurance remained absolutely central to their identity, for sure, but they started layering on vital new services. They expanded into comprehensive financial planning, disability insurance to protect people's ongoing income, investment services to actively build wealth, and of course, retirement planning. This represented a massive, massive evolution in the industry. The core question became, how do we help you manage your entire financial future? The industry moved away from simply asking how to protect a family if tragedy strikes, though that's still important, and instead shifted to proactively planning a lifelong financial trajectory. It was no longer just a simple financial promise in case of the worst. It became this complex, holistic approach to wealth and security.
Section 5. The Enduring Mutual Advantage, a Lifelong Relationship.
So the crucial point is that this modern expansion into lifelong financial planning is just a completely natural fit for their original 1857 foundation. Because a mutual insurer is owned by its members, it naturally maintains a long-term perspective. Financial protection is rarely just a one-year decision, right? It can be a lifelong relationship spanning decades, and the mutual ownership model is perfectly engineered to support exactly that kind of timeline. When we look back at the 160-plus years of history we've just covered, the story of this company is ultimately a story about answering one of humanity's absolute oldest concerns: what happens to the people we leave behind? We've seen massive technological shifts, booming industrialization, entirely new global economies pop up since 1857. America has changed completely. But this fundamental question, at the very heart of the insurance industry, it has remained exactly the same.
And the answer, always, always comes back to this one core principle: security for tomorrow. Sharing the risk, protecting one another, planning for the future. That is exactly what has allowed the mutual insurance model to survive generations of American history, weathering wars, pandemics, and depressions, all while continuously protecting families.
We started this explainer by looking at the stark, pretty scary realities of the 1850s. But I want to leave you with a question for your own life today. How are you preparing your family for an uncertain future? Markets will inevitably change, technology is going to continue to evolve at warp speed, and generations will come and go, but the need to plan ahead, that never disappears. Think about your own strategy, your own safety net, and how you are building your security for tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it gave you some valuable perspective on the history of protecting what matters most.